I've got the new Tamron 90mm macro. It's paired with my A7 IV. Now, I don't do technical reviews, but I do like to do practical ones. So we're gonna walk around town in Long Beach. We're gonna talk composition, shooting. I'm gonna give you some thoughts on this lens along the way. I see some cute dogs. Let's see if they're down for us taking a few pictures. Would it be cool if I took pictures of your dogs while they're running back and forth? Totally. And then if you guys want, I'll give you my info. You guys can get the images. Oh, there we go. All right, so I can only pixel peep in the camera right now, but geez, I'm shooting an f2.8. These are tack sharp. The bokeh rendering looks great. The focus did amazingly well. I mean, these are dogs that are running to and from the camera, and I don't see a single misfocus in here. That's partly due to the Sony system. It's also partly due to the Tamron lens itself. That was fun. Let's keep going. We're gonna see if this lovely couple would like to do a family portrait with their puppy. I kind of just want to see how the background is gonna render in terms of bokeh. So I'm gonna shoot this wide open, see what it looks like. One of the things that I did right from the beginning, and this is kind of an advantage of knowing I have so much range in shooting with a Sony lens. I put their backs towards the light and just kind of shoot knowing that like I'll have a lot of range in the shadows and I can pick everything up in the edit. So it's kind of cleaning everything up by shooting them against the water. I wanted to see how the lens resolved background bokeh. Sometimes with certain lenses, you can get like a kind of a distracting, overall busy rendering effect in the background. From these images, at least pixel peeping, the bokeh looks really nice. It doesn't look busy. It looks very pleasing. I love the beating effect on the water. Again, focus did really well. It looks awesome. What's interesting is I was really happy with how this was focusing and how quickly it was grabbing focus. Even when the dogs were running forward, backward, kind of moving in all different ways, I just left it on that infinity focus. Even when they were coming in close, this thing was snapping to focus really well. Actually, unlike other macro lenses I've used that can kind of take a while to hunt, this was very quick with it. Here, I'm gonna kind of set up and maybe do a little bit of a slow shutter drag. So I'm actually putting my shutter speed to like maybe 1/50th, 1/100th-ish. Lowering my ISO all the way down to 50, and then I think I max out the lens at around f16. Now, one thing that I quickly notice when I'm trying something like a panning shot like this is that, of course, this doesn't have stabilization. It's part of the price point that you get. This version for Sony is like an $800 lens. And what you're getting in terms of the quality and the image output, it's a steal at that price, but of course, there are some limitations. And that's kind of the one that I feel like would be really nice to have. I'd even love it if there's maybe a version of the lens that was a bit more expensive, but it did have stabilization, because it would allow me to do this kind of stuff a lot easier. We can still do it. We just gotta be careful with our framing. We gotta really hold it stable as we're panning across the frame. We've got a few in there, but panning shots are really tricky without in-lens stabilization. So let's keep going. We have finally found something to macro. We're gonna get macro on this. Wait.
Okay, go.
Now we're cooking with grass.
I like that laugh.
I'm gonna place this in the light right here. Let's take a couple different kinds of shots. What if we wanted a shot that was like a little bit wider? Like just a highlighted bowl of acai in that light. Now let's actually see what kind of like the bokeh aesthetic looks like. And I'm gonna shoot a couple different shots over like different patches of grass just so you can see the aesthetic. But I'm gonna go wide open. So let's go to f2.8. I'm shooting this so it's more for little comparison points so you can kind of see. So I'm shooting a bit wider just so we see the background a little bit and so you can kind of see what the actual bokeh aesthetic looks like. That right there was a technical hop. You wanna see me do it again? Some people call it the bunny hop. Actually, it looks really nice. So this is where I expected to see some of that kind of more distracting bokeh effect. Sometimes on less expensive primes, I noticed that the bokeh kind of ends up looking a little bit busy. It ends up looking a little bit not so pleasing, a little bit distracting. I'm not getting much of that with this, if any at all. This looks really, really nice. Color me impressed. I dig it. Let's eat some acai. So far, we have a really great all-around lens. And I know personally, I never thought of macro lenses kind of that way. I typically would think it's a macro lens, we're gonna use it for close-ups. But this thing works well for everything. For portraits, I would never use a macro for, say, action shots like with the dogs because they tend to be slow to focus. This thing had no problem. So the last thing I wanna do, I might take a few more shots, but I wanna walk around downtown a bit, maybe get some shots of the buildings where I can see just edge-to-edge sharpness, and we'll see what else we find along the way. I just kind of like the look of the light and the way the light's kind of hitting the buildings. We have kind of this yellow on one side, the blue on the other, and the shadows. It looks kind of fun and cool. If you're a nut about sharpness, I mean, this isn't like a technical test. We're not shooting against a focus board, but pretty sure even if you did, you'd like the results. I love being downtown and shooting images of like the way light hits buildings and the different colors and shapes we get. I could do this kind of stuff all day long, but I find it interesting how the light's hitting that one 600 building. We have kind of shadows on the other side with a little bit of a different shape building. We have shadows on this side. I don't know, it looks kind of cool to me. So there's our image at f2.8. Kind of blows me away. Looking in, like, I know I'm just on the back of the camera, pixel peeping. And I'm not a sharpness nut by any means, but it's freaking sharp. Like if you are a sharpness nut, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be satisfied already at f2.8. So we're gonna stop it down to f7.1 and just kind of see. Okay, so edge to edge, this looks absolutely awesome. But the one thing that's a little bit more noticeable to me is I can see a very subtle amount of vignetting when I'm at f2.8. I actually, not only is it kind of a very subtle effect on this lens, but I actually kind of like that, especially coming from more of the portrait world. I like my lenses to have a little bit of character. I feel like it adds to the overall choice of like what I'm pairing with my camera and kind of the overall vision of the shot. So I dig it. It's very subtle, but also pleasing in that kind of way that it draws a little bit of attention in. At f7.1, we notice the edges slightly get a little bit brighter, but yeah, it is there. Oh, this is a private building. Okay, so final verdict. I mean, let's not talk about the price point at all right now. Let's just talk about the overall performance of this lens. Top to bottom, it works fantastically. I mean, the focus system to when we're shooting close up, when we're shooting far, it was absolutely superb. The overall image quality kind of blew me away. The one thing, if I were to nitpick, would be like, I do think that there's a tiny bit of improvement that can be made in the bokeh aesthetic. I don't know how to do that. I'm not an engineer, but that's one area where I noticed like, okay, it looks really nice. I don't have any major complaints, but it's not quite as smooth as maybe some of the other lenses that I've worked with. All across the board though, it did really, really well, and I was very surprised by what it was doing. Now let's bring in the price point, because that's what makes it kind of crazy, is at the price that this is offered, specifically for this lens and this camera setup, it's $700. That makes it an absolute steal. It also makes it very understandable why maybe image stabilization is not built into the lens, because it allows us to get to that price point, which makes it super affordable for everybody. Given the fact that most of our cameras have some form of IBIS, in-body image stabilization, that's not by any means a deal breaker. And even if we didn't have in-body stabilization, I would still say it's not a deal breaker given all the things that this can do. So, overall verdict, fantastic lens. You gotta try it for yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, chime in below, subscribe, of course, all that kind of stuff. But let me know what you think about the video, what ideas you have for future content. I do actually read all of your comments, and I'd love to hear from you. Peace.